Multimedia Box TV رمضان كريم.
In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, dear listeners and viewers wherever you are, dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of your new program, Misconceptions. Misconceptions is a program that will shed light on different misconceptions and stereotypes that have targeted Islam throughout history. Since the dawn of Islam, many stereotypes, allegations, misconceptions have been made targeting Islam. The very first character to which these misconceptions, allegations, and accusations were made against was the Prophet, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. Then it was the truly guided caliphs, then the great scholars of Islam. The sources of these misconceptions and stereotypes are several. There is actually a real plethora of sources. But just to name the main sources of these misconceptions, first of all, haters of Islam. Some people who hate Islam for one reason or another and try to spread these misunderstandings about Islam. Another source are Muslims who unfortunately implement Islam in the very wrong way due to their misunderstanding. Even though they might have good intention, but they still implement things in the wrong way. The third kind, which is a minority, but unfortunately does exist, is a group of Muslims who understand Islam very well, but their evil minds and hearts have led them to do everything contrary to the teachings of Islam. In the past 30 years, Islam has been accused to be the religion of terror, of hatred, of despise to the others. It calls to treat others with disdain. How true or untrue are these misconceptions, allegations, and accusations? To know more, I'm really delighted to be accompanied today in the studio by the Islamic preacher and activist Firas Mirish. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure having you with us. And to start off, many people would use different verses from the Quran, and usually it's taken out of context. So they would just take one verse, they would exclude the previous, and the following verse, or sometimes they would even take a little chunk of a verse or just a set of few words. So today we'll be stopping at three areas. We'll be starting with the Quran, the Holy Quran, and we'll be taking specific verses that people use to say that Islam is the religion of hatred and despise to the others. We'll be stopping with the discourses or the hadith of the Prophet, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. And last but not least, we'll be stopping at Islamic history. So to start off, one of the most talked about verses is the following verse, which says, "Fight those who do not believe in Allah, nor in the later day, nor do they prohibit what Allah and His Apostle have prohibited, nor follow the religion of truth out of those who have been given the book, until they pay tax and acknowledgement of superiority, and they are in a state of subjection." So here we're talking about other people, and specifically the believers of the book, the people who are given the books, namely, the Jewish and the Christian people. And here it talks about they pay tax in acknowledgement of superiority, and they are in a state of subjection. So someone might tell you here, like, hey, isn't this a call to crush the other and oppress the other and hurt their dignity to the max?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah.
please.
First of all, Jazakumullah khair for this show and raising this important topic. Ramadan Mubarak for you and for our respected viewers.
And you too.
I would like to start actually with very important principles that we need to solidify to make this a fruitful discussion, and inshallah to help our viewers take a tool with them moving forward, not just a question that we want to answer today. We want them to have a tool with them to gauge such allegations.
Comprehensive.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So there are 5 principles, inshallah, that I would like to solidify, and we'll go over them quickly just as pointers for our viewers to be able to make the best out of the discussion today. First one, we need to know that in our Islam is in this book, the Holy Quran, and the authentic hadith of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This is the main source, the Holy Quran. We need to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Holy Quran as guidance. In the Quran, there are orders of do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
As Muslims, we have to believe with absolute certainty that whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders us to do in the Quran, it's nothing but khair, nothing but goodness and benefit to the followers of the book and to mankind.
Mankind in general, mankind.
How does that make sense? Because mankind are not following what's in the book. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent solutions in this book. If you believe that this solution comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you get the benefit of dunya and akhirah, this life and the life after.
Yeah.
If you decide to take this book for the solutions to apply in your dunya, will also benefit, right? Because these solutions, there are many solutions for every social interaction that you could think of. Anything related to humans that makes humans' life better is in here. That's what we believe. So any orders in the Holy Quran, we believe that it's good, nothing but good, brings us benefits, or push away harm. So this is an absolute creed for Muslims, and who thinks otherwise, then they have problem with their understanding. And the proof is in the Holy Quran, in the first verse of the 2nd chapter, Surah Al-Baqarah, Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said with absolute certainty, no doubt, that this book is guidance to those that seek, who are the muttaqeen, those that seek protection. Protection from what? From anything harmful. Yeah. So this is the first verse, or the 2nd verse in the 2nd chapter. Also in Surah An-Naml, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, طَاسِينَ تِلْكَ آيَاتُ الْقُرْآنِ وَكِتَابٌ مُبِينٌ. Again, tilka, these are the verses of the Quran, the clear Quran, huda wa bushra lil mu'minin. It's guidance and it's glad tidings. So there's nothing in this book that's harmful or calls for harming others or calls for a rejected, obscene behavior, an act of racism, or any of those.
So thank you very much for clarifying this, because this should always be the sieve through which people should pass their analysis. So, like, this is my sieve. Like, whenever we read the Quran, whenever we do anything, Allah has 99 names. But which 2 names are the names that we always use day and night?
Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim.
We say Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Most merciful, most gracious, most merciful, most compassionate. So, compassion and grace are the 2 superior names of Allah that we always use.
Sahih.
And Allah has ordained this upon Himself. He has ordained mercy upon
His
Himself.
Followers.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Point number 2, Jazakallah khair, which you alluded to, that you cannot just take one verse and say, here, this is what it says. The Quran is a list of topics or a combination of topics, right? So if you read one verse, you need to read the whole story. You need to see what's before it and what's after it, so you can form the right idea out of it. So this is also an important point, Jazakallah khair, that you mentioned. Point number 3, the Holy Quran has orders that relates to individuals, and there are orders that relates to groups. We cannot mix these two. It's very important. So, for example, the ayah that you read, وَقَاتِلُوا. وَقَاتِلُوا, it's talking to a group It's a group setting. And at that time, we'll get to it in a second, it's a state. It's a state, it's a country, it's a government, right? So that order is directed to a group. However, there are other verses such as "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal mu'izati al hasana," call to the way of Allah with wisdom, right?
Yeah.
It's talking to an individual. So the orders that come to an individual, you can take it and apply it everywhere. But if it's to a group,
Yeah.
we need to assess it properly.
And like just a little point here, you said a state. And that's a very important thing because this is very much related to like a great accusation by many people who say, you know what, when Islam was weak in Mecca and the dawn of Islam, the verses of the Quran were so meek, they were so gentle, not calling for war, not calling for fighting. But when they fled to Medina and they started creating a state and they started becoming strong,
Start showing a different face.
exactly, then they showed their true colors, which is hatred and fight and attack.
This is actually my next point, Jazakallah khair. Perfect
Wa
synchronization, unplanned. So, principle number 3 to this point. Islam has 2 phases and 2 major applications that makes it universal and valid for every time and every age. There's the phase of Mecca and there's the phase of Medina. The phase of Mecca, when Muhammad ﷺ lived in Mecca, his status in Mecca was a citizen of Mecca. Yeah, he was one of the ashraf, one of the leaders, and his family is one of the leaders or leading families in Mecca.
Like one of the nobles.
But he was one of the nobles, but he was a citizen.
Yeah.
Right? So he was a citizen living in the arrangement of Muslims. At one point, they were minority in a bigger arrangement, right? What happened during that era is all the revelation has no mention of any kind of fights or worship or wars or battles. It was all about the dialogue and the communication. And if we read the seerah of Muhammad ﷺ, what did he ask for when he was living in Mecca? When he was approaching the leaders or approaching the public, all what he asked for is, let's speak, let's dialogue, let's talk. Let's have a wise conversation. Let me show you what I have. خَلُّوا بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ. Just let me speak to people. So that state, and by the way, that state is not nullified by the establishment of the state of Islam in Medina. No. It applies to any application that basically has the exact same conditions. So when Muhammad ﷺ was in Mecca, it was all about dialogue. However, he was pushed back by the people of Mecca. But when he went to Medina, what happens in Medina? It's a completely different arrangement.
Yeah, but even before going to Medina, like even in Mecca, he could have been rough and tough if he wanted.
Absolutely.
Because he was supported by 2 major leaders.
Especially
in
after they joined Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab and
Exactly.
before him Sayyidina Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib. When they joined his group and became Muslims, Muhammad ﷺ was in a state of power, if you will. And we all know the famous story when Abu Jahl assaulted Muhammad ﷺ near Al-Kaaba. Hamza heard about it and he slapped him.
Yeah.
He slapped him and he dared him.
He told him, like, strike back if you dare.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he dared him to strike back and he couldn't. So Muslims, we're at a state of weakness for the most of their time in Mecca, but towards the end they were not weak, they were strong. And they were able to cause problems and play tough, but they didn't.
And
they
still
respected,
the verses did not change.
the
tone.
verses did not change. And they respected that assembly and the arrangement of, if you will, citizenship, right?
Yeah.
So in that state, with the power, there was no mention of power or use of power. But it becomes absolutely different when you form a state now. So when they became a state in Medina, it was a full state of Muslims. That state was under threat. Why? It was a growing state. It was an attractive state because it was state based on justice, honesty, good values. In the midst of Arabia, where Arabia at that time, they were very rough and there was continuous fights and continuous wars amongst each others. Medina is rising to become this great civilization.
Yeah.
It's becoming attractive to a lot of people of Arabia. and becoming a threat to the superpowers that are occupying the outskirts of Arabia. Because if this state is growing and it's going to include all of the Arabs, what's going to happen? The superpowers, which is Persia and Rome,
Yeah,
they will lose their
exactly.
interest in
So
Arabia.
you had like the Byzantine Empire, or the eastern wing of the Roman Empire,
That's right.
and then you had the Persian Empire.
So they had a lot of interest in Arabia.
Absolutely.
And by this young state growing and solidifying and becoming powerful and uniting the Arab that were in disarray for years, right? Their weakness was because of their internal fights. Now, come Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he's uniting the Arab, and this state is becoming powerful and is threatening the superpowers. What was the reaction of the superpowers? And the people that opposed Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they wanted to take him on. They wanted to eradicate Islam and Muslims. So they were continuously planning to attack and finish this new state and eradicate
Which
this
is
new
a
state.
natural response of any superpower throughout history. They would not
Absolutely.
allow, you know, like another power to grow and challenge their, like, you know,
It challenged their existence.
iron fist.
And
Exactly.
absolutely, and to a point where it challenged their existence. So Persia
Yeah,
ended
exactly.
20 years after Hijrah, right? Almost. So, absolutely. So, living in that state of threat, don't you think that you have to defend yourself? Don't you think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most wise, will say, Qatilu? Qatilu means fight back, means protect yourself, means engage to defend yourself.
And it doesn't mean kill.
And it
or
doesn't mean
attack.
kill, because kill, uqtul. So there's a difference between uqtul and qatil. So the order here in the word qatil, which we will be seeing in different verses now, is basically defend yourself.
It's like a duel. It's like it's.
And it requires the arrange, exactly.
Exactly. So it's mutual fighting.
Absolutely.
It's not one side that's attacking the other.
Exactly,
And the other
exactly.
one is on the defensive.
And give me one sane person on earth that will say, no, I'm not going to defend myself.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense,
So-
right? So it's the order came to the Muslims that now you've been hurt, you've been harmed, protect yourself, because you need to defend your group now. It's not a matter of individual. And
Yeah.
this gives us an important sense is we are as a group, we defend our interests, not only the interests of Muslim as a group, but every single person that lived with them of other religions, like the Jews and the Christians in different
Absolutely.
areas, they were also protected by that
So
order.
going a little bit here in the detail of the verse, it says, you know, out of those who have been given the book. So some people might say, this is a clear attack and a clear permission or license to kill the people of the book of all time,
Tamam.
like the Christians and the Jews. And they must, you know, pay the tax in acknowledgement of superiority.
Absolutely.
And so, like, it's treating others with disdain, it's exalting the Muslims, and, you know, like, really crushing and oppressing the non-Muslims or the people of the book, and they should be in a state of subjection.
Very good. So in this particular ayah in Surah At-Tawbah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, fight back, and it's not fight, it's fight back, it's
Defend
engage,
yourself, in
defend
other words.
yourself
Yeah.
Against those who don't wish you well or who wants to harm you. And I want to mention here the fifth principle is Muslims or Arab prior to Islam were not, by the way, warriors. They did not have a regular army, right? So they were actually people of, they were merchants,
Yeah.
right? And when the order came to them to fight as Muslims, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Baqarah, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْقِتَالُ وَهُوَ كُرْهٌ لَكُمْ وَعَسَى أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. I have ordained upon you to fight back, and I know you hate it. This is very important.
So,
This is very important.
Absolutely.
The Muslim army or Muslims, they did not long for, or they were not bloodthirsty.
it wasn't within them because they were mainly merchants, they were a peaceful society.
They wanted peace for the business.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly.
So their arrangements is we don't want to fight. So it was they were,
Absolutely.
but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching the lesson that you have to protect yourself. Because back then we have heard, and throughout history, we've heard of nations
Yeah.
that they fought for the sake of fighting, for the sake of shedding
Absolutely.
blood, for the sake of conquering. This is not
Absolutely.
the principle in Islam.
So
We
they're
need to
like
make this
bounty
very-
hunters or like.
Absolutely.
And we'll be going on a short break, but just before going on the break here, so here, this verse.
Back to the verse,
And
yeah.
it's very important here to point like read it carefully. It says, "Fight those who do not believe in Allah, nor in the later day, nor do they prohibit what Allah and His Apostle have prohibited, nor follow the religion of the truth, out of those who have been given the book." It doesn't say fight those who have been given the book, out of.
All the categories that are mentioned here are the ones that are the fighters
and the
ones
attackers.
that are attackers.
Exactly. But any peaceful man
Absolutely.
of the book has absolute freedom to
and
keep his faith.
And we're going to prove it now in the Holy Quran, right?
Absolutely.
But the attackers fight them back. Al-Jizya, with degradation that we talked about here, Al-Jizya is a proof that we're only fighting the attackers.
And this tax was for people, because Muslims will be fighting on their behalf.
Well, basically, so when the people are given a choice between becoming a Muslim or paying tax, you're keeping your religion.
Yeah.
So this is what, and this tax is only ordained upon male, able, capable, and free. You do it out of free will.
And other people are exempted.
This is very important.
Yeah.
If you're not capable, you have some sort of a disability, or if you don't have the money, you don't have to pay it.
The state pays it on your behalf.
And what do you take in return? You don't have to serve in the army. They will protect you. So this is a proof here that if you're not an attacker, if you're a peaceful citizen, you will be protected. You don't have to fight. You can keep your religion. You can keep everything that you used to. You're given two important advantages in the state of Islam. You're given your freedom to choose, and you're given protection.
Perfect.
Right? So this is basically will nullify the idea of degradation. You're not being degraded. As a matter of fact, you're being dignified.
Just those who are attacking. Dear listeners and viewers, dear brothers and sisters, we'll just go on a short break and we'll be back. So please stay tuned.
Multimedia Box TV رمضان كريم.
تعطلت الحياة بسبب كورونا، تتواجد الإغاثة الإسلامية دائما في قلب الحدث لتغيث المحتاج كي لا يتألم، لنحميه من المرض، لنكف عنه الأذى. بتبرعك للإغاثة الإسلامية عبر العالم نصل إلى الأشد ضعفا وحاجة مثل مريم. معا نرسم البسمة على وجهها. تبرع الآن للإغاثة الإسلامية عبر العالم. تبرعاتكم في أيد أمينة. لأجلك ولأجلهم ابق في المنزل وشاركهم رمضان.
إقبال حلال فودز 1499 Earn Mills, Mississauga, Ontario. Multimedia Box TV رمضان كريم.
Dear viewers, dear brothers and sisters, welcome back. Before the break, we were stopping with the discussion of several verses in the Quran that some people might take as proof that Islam is a deen or a religion that would call for the hatred and disdain of the others. We talked about the first verse, and it was very clear that it targets only those who have evil intentions against Muslims and those who initiate, who take the initiative. to attack and aggress against the Muslims. Now, like during the break, you told me that you have
Absolutely.
little clarification. Yeah.
Back to the point where we said we have to examine the verses before and after the one in question. Verse number 8 in the same chapter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, كَيْفَ وَيَظْهَرُوا عَلَيْكُمْ لَا يَرْقُبُوا فِيكُمْ إِلَّا وَلَا ذِمَّةً. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his followers that they're plotting against you. If they conquer you or if they became victorious, they will eradicate you. They're not going to honor any covenants. They're not going to honor even the blood, because some of them
no kinship,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So the warning came clearly that they're plotting to eradicate Islam and Muslims. So be ready in a defensive mode, and this is exactly what was the order is: protect yourself and defend yourself.
Because if those people have the upper hand, they'll never have any mercy over you, and they'll totally annihilate.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Now, moving to the next verse, which says, when you encounter those who disbelieve, strike at their necks. Then, when you have routed them, bind them firmly. Then either release them by grace or by ransom, until war lays down its burdens. Had God willed, he could have defeated them himself, but he thus tests some of you by means of others. As for those who are killed in the way of God, he will not let their deeds go to waste. So here it says, when you encounter those who disbelieve, strike at their necks. Strike at their necks. And then when you have routed them, bind them firmly. So isn't this like too aggressive?
Okay. This ayah also talked about the exact same condition, the state of war. Right? So this is no state where Muslims are asked to be offensive and to start a war. Again, إذا لقيتم, in this word لقيتم, you've in engagement in a state of war, in a battlefield.
Okay.
So you're right there in the battlefield. What do you think people do in the battlefield? They shake hands and give hugs and kisses?
Of course, fight.
It's fighting, right?
And it's very brutal.
And exactly, and that state of war, which is physical encounter by sword, that's all what happens at the battlefield. So again, you're in the battlefield, you are asked to protect yourself and defend yourself. However, let's see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says when the war stops, which is the goal of Muslims. And this is important here. When the war stops, and if you are victorious, what do you do? What were traditional armies doing? What did they do when they become victorious?
They have hostages.
They will kill everybody.
Yeah.
It's easier to kill. What did the Mughals did? They just killed everybody. They built mountains out of skulls, right?
Yeah.
But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, no, if you're victorious, فَشُدُّ الْوَثَاقِ. So you took hostages, make sure they don't run away. Why? Because you want to kill them? No. فَإِمَّا مَنًّا بَعْدُ وَإِمَّا فِدَاءً. Talk to them. Explain Islam to them. Show them the goods and the solutions in Islam. If they liked it, khair, great. If not, and you see goods in letting them go, if you feel that they were forced to fight, for example, mannan.
Yeah.
Say, idhabu antum
Out of
tulaqa,
goodness,
out of goodness, just go home. Because
Yeah.
we want to show them the manners of Muslims.
Yeah.
Imma mannan ba'du wa imma fida'an, or take ransom. What are the ransoms? It could be money, but it also could be something really valuable, which is knowledge, education.
So, yeah.
If they have a knowledge of a certain science or even a trade,
Teach it to some
of the
people,
Muslims.
and you're free.
And you're free to go.
Yeah.
So an army that does that at a state of victory, at a state of power, is not an army that's out there to kill or to harm.
And it's not it's not a barbarous act. Like,
Absolutely.
barbarians do not act in this way at all.
Absolutely.
Like, they want knowledge. So knowledge is a ransom. Like, if you give knowledge, what does this say?
Absolutely.
Now, the next verse here is a verse that tends to be one of the terrorists' most favorite one. They think that it's a great call for them. And this verse says, and prepare against them all the power you can muster, and all the cavalry you can mobilize, to terrify thereby God's enemies and your enemies, and others besides them, whom you do not know, but God knows them. Whatever you spend in God's way will be repaid to you in full, and you will not be wronged. So prepare against them all the power you can master. Why? To terrify. So the word terror, so when you terrorize,
is mentioned.
When you're a terrorist, it's a compliment, actually. I'm happy, I'm a terrorist, I'm implementing God's words.
So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here, actually this verse is completely opposite to what it's some people are trying to use it for.
Take it out of context, or just take the
Completely
very
opposite.
superficial.
Subhanallah. Let me just start with Allah saying, prepare yourself. Be ready. Be strong. Be powerful. To terrify. Turhibu. Now the word ruhab here means fear. Khawf. And terrify, what's terrifying?
Yeah.
It means you're scared, right?
Exactly.
Scared to a very high degree. A very high degree of fear. So the idea here is to plant fear, right? So it's an emotional attack, if you will. It's not a physical attack. By planting fear in whom? On those who want to attack you, what would that do? Would that start a war, or would it stop a war?
It would stop a
It
war.
would stop a war. And the evidence in the same surah, and if we go back to the verse 56, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, the first before it, إِنَّ شَرَّ الدَّوَابِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. The worst of people that walk on earth, those that don't believe, that do what? الذين عاهدت منهم ثم ينقضون عهدهم في كل مرة وهم لا يتقون. Those that you've made peace with.
Do not respect covenants.
And they broke the covenants.
Yeah, they don't respect
Why?
the covenants.
They broke the covenants because they want to attack you, they want to get rid of you, they want to harm you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, those that you've made covenant with,
Yeah.
Allah knows that they're going to break their covenant. Be ready, be prepared, so they know that, you know what, these guys are strong, I better not mess with them. So out of fear, we will stop the war, not start it.
And terrify here, actually, it's like there are many synonyms, absolutely. And here, terrify here is the essence of the word terrify here is to deter. So
Exactly.
deterrence, like
It's
deterrence,
deterrence,
is
that's
something that is used in strategy all over the world. So today we do not have World War III because of what is called the MAD policy, or the mutually assured destruction. There is mutual deterrence from both sides. So I know that you're very strong, and that's why I will not attack you.
Exactly.
So you prepare your arsenal, a very strong arsenal, not to attack others, but for others to fear you. They know if they attack you, they will pay dearly for that.
And that's completely different than what we've seen historically in some armies like the Mughals or even the Crusades, where people are terrified of them coming because what? Because they know they're going to come and they're going to slaughter them. So that kind of, this is not what this ayah is talking about. This ayah is talking just by fear, they're not going to attack, there will be no war, as opposed to terrify them, after terrifying them, kill them, slaughter them. This is not what this ayah is mentioning.
So just before we go to hadith, and like really time is running, a very quick but important comment here, and it's related to this verse, and says, and find them until there is no more fitna, like, which means disbelief and polytheism, like, or in other words, worshiping others beside Allah, and the religion will all be for Allah alone. So here, like, let's talk, like, as briefly as possible, because time is really running, about the status of non-Muslims within a Muslim state, not according to the implementation of what so-called, quote-unquote, Islamic states, but according to the teaching of the authentic sources of Islam, the Quran and the true Hadith. What is the status of non-Muslims? And is it true that if anyone, embraces Islam and then chooses to leave Islam, did God ordain people to kill that person right away?
طيب. حتى لا تكون فتنة. The fitna here is basically the fear of not being able to practice your religion freely. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, you Muslims, right, in your state, you need to give assurances and freedom for people to live their religion freely.
All religion.
All religions. And this is very clear because in the state of Islam, there were people of other religions that lasted for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Right? So basically, so there will not be fitna, so people will be...
And thank you for mentioning this, because when Muslims were the superpower, and they stayed like a superpower for at least 800 to 900 years, during this time, if they have wanted to totally annihilate the non-Muslims, they could have done that.
Without
And
worrying about anybody on earth
Exactly.
to stand, against them. They had the power to do so. But create that state of stability and safety and security for people to practice their religion. If they choose to become Muslims, it's good. If not,
and keep their churches and keep their synagogues.
And that's what happened
yeah.
in Jerusalem, that's happened in Damascus, that's happened in Egypt.
Yeah.
They were given the freedom and the covenant by Muhammad ﷺ by Sahaba for them to keep their religion. Now
Yeah,
those...
like even just a very quick thing, like in Egypt, when the Muslims came, the Byzantines, they were like of a different,
Catholic
Christian
against
sect.
Orthodox,
exactly.
yeah.
So, and they removed the Pope of Alexandria, Pope Benjamin I.
Yes.
And the first thing the Muslims did when Amr ibn al-As came, he brought Pope Benjamin I, he brought him on the papal seat again.
Yes, absolutely. No, absolutely. So there are many, many proofs here, and we can't get to all of them. But to the point where, what if someone chose to become a Muslim and they chose to leave Islam? There was a period right after the death of Muhammad ﷺ where some people wanted to destabilize the state and the group. So there was hurub al-ridda. There was battles to fight those that are breaking out of Islam. It wasn't back then. We need to pay good attention to this. It wasn't an individual's choice out of freedom to choose something else. It was a group movement to destabilize the state of Muslims and break it down.
Okay, so again, because time is running, and please correct me if I'm wrong, like we can say, if you choose to leave Islam, but in a peaceful manner, you do not, scheme or plan against Islam, and you do not launch attacks against Islam, you're absolutely free.
Absolutely.
You're absolutely free. It's
Absolutely.
like, it's your choice. It's your choice to believe or disbelieve, even if you choose not to believe in God altogether.
من
It's
شاء
completely-
فليؤمن ومن شاء فليكفر. Allah subhanahu
It's
wa ta'ala
up
say
to
it's your
you.
free will. You want to
as
choose
long
to
as
believe
you
or
do not
believe.
attack people.
And so we have to distinguish between an individual free choice and a plan and a plot to attack and destabilize and create chaos.
Exactly.
Two separate things.
And now moving to the hadith. And so like one of the hadith that a lot of people would take is the Prophet, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, said, being sent just before the hour, which means like the hereafter, the day of judgment, day of resurrection, with the sword, so that Allah will be worshipped alone with no partner or associate. So being sent with the sword.
طيب. To fight people, right? Again, who are these people? So we need to look at multiple ahadith to explain this ahadith, because people also includes Muslims. Muslims are peoples. Non-Muslims are people. So Muslims, you say they're excluded out of this definition, people, because they already say La ilaha illallah.
Yeah.
But who else is included in the term people? This is what we have to pay good attention to. First of all, there are other nations or cities or states that are in peace treaty with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they're on their own religion. They didn't say La ilaha illallah. Does that mean Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his army will kill him? Well, let's see what Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says about nations in treaty. He said, ألا من ظلم معاهدا أو انتقصه حقه أو كلفه فوق طاقته أو أخذ له شيئا بغير حقه فأنا حجيجه يوم القيامة. I warn you, O Muslims, this is to Muslims, if you cause undue hardship or injustice to any nation in peace treaty with us, I will stand against you on the day of
Prophet, may Allah's peace and blessings, he held a covenant with people of Mecca who were polytheists, who were pagans, who clearly stated that they do not believe in Allah. But he had a covenant with them, and it was fully respected.
Well,
they are the ones who broke it.
Let's listen to what a Sahaba told us. They told us that Rasul ﷺ treated the pagans as two different groups. One of them, Ahlu Harb, and the other, Ahlu Ahd. Part of them are the ones that are the attackers, the ones who fight them.
The aggressors and the
aggressors and the covenant people. So here, Muhammad ﷺ is distinguishing between people with, whether it's a nation or citizens, which is a dhimmi, people of the book that lived within the Muslim state, where they didn't say La ilaha illallah.
Yeah.
They had all their
as
rights.
long as you seek peace, as long as you don't seek harm for the others.
Absolutely. So again, it goes back to who is meant by people, the aggressors and the attackers, not the people in covenant or in peace treaty.
Perfect. Last but not least, talking about the history of Islam. So, a saying by the Prophet, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, I'll just summarize it. So basically, like the essence of the saying says that after the Prophet, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, like the Khilafah will last for 30 years. So like, and in reality, the truly guided caliphs, so Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Uthman, Sayyidina Ali, and his son, Al-Hasan, combined, they stayed for about 30 years, which is exactly what the Prophet said before. And then he said, after that, we will have a biting kingship. Then we'll have tyrannical rule. So when we talk about the history of Islam, so can we say that history of Islam is represented by every state that calls itself Muslim state? So we can say that the history of Islam ended with the end of the Ottoman Empire at the end of World War I? Or is there a difference between the time of the Prophet and the truly guided caliphs, 30 years after the Prophet, and what's after that is a different story?
So from the hadith or the teachings of Muhammad ﷺ, he clearly told us that the guided caliphs that applied Islam based on the prophetic way only stopped at the Khilafah Rashida, which is 30 years.
30 years.
What does it mean? That means that every ruler or Amir al-Mu'mineen or Caliph or Khalifa applied exactly what was given to them. They adhered to the highest degree to the way of Muhammad ﷺ in applying Islam, right? What comes after, we all know, and Muhammad ﷺ told us, it was actually based on the individual, the ruler himself. The system itself was not in absolute adherence to the system of Islam. So you would get a tyrant that will diss everything. Then you would get Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, who applied it perfectly. So it would vary. The application of Islamic rules in these matters varied based on the ruler.
We have to admit that there were mistakes, there were people who did many things, committed many atrocities in the name of Islam that had nothing to do with the teachings.
Nobody can deny this because they did not adhere 100% to what's in the book of Allah.
Against innocent non-Muslims, it is a fact, but it's not what the Quran teaches, not what the teachings of the Prophet say. And like very simple, if I say 1 + 1 = 15, doesn't mean that there's a problem with mathematics. The problem is in me.
Your understanding,
it's my
your
misunderstanding.
And this is why by doing this, Jazakallah khair, we're showing the essence of Islam and the true principles of Islam. So anything that deviates from this, it's not from Islam.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to end, if we look at what the Quran tells us, and if thy Lord willed, all who are in the earth would have believed together. Wouldest thou, Muhammad, compel men until they are believers? So it's like a question to the Prophet. Allah could have made us all the same, could have made us all Muslims, but it is His will for people to choose Islam freely.
Absolutely.
And if your Lord had willed, He could have made mankind one community, but they will not cease to differ. They will not cease to differ. If Allah did not want them to differ, He would have chosen not to do so. There is no compulsion in religion. Truly the right way has become clearly distinct from error. There is no compulsion in religion. To embrace Islam, it has to be 100% by your own free will. Absolutely. Other than that, you're a free man to practice whatever religion or even no religion.
And you'll be protected to do so.
And you'll be protected, absolutely.
Yeah.
Fight in the way of Allah those who fight you, but do not transgress. Indeed, Allah does not like transgressors. Fight only those who fight you, but never transgress. And last, if one amongst the pagans asked thee for asylum, grant it to him, so that he may hear the word of Allah, and then escort him to where he can be secure. Escort the unbeliever. So how more peaceful and how more loving that may be. So, hopefully we will all, hear the word of Allah and implement it. This is the most important.
Absolutely.
Implement it. And may Allah give guidance to those people who have misunderstood the religion.
Allahumma ameen.
It's the right, Islam is a comprehensive thing. You have to read the whole book. It's a mosaic. It completes one another. You cannot just take a little pixel from the picture and decide and make a stereotype out of it. Blow it out of proportion.
And if you believe it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, go back to the simple principle, has nothing but good to humanity,
Absolutely.
Wherever they are.
Absolutely. So, Brother Firas, thank you very much for being with us today.
Always a pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine, and definitely our dear viewers, dear brothers and sisters, thank you very much for following us. Until we meet next week, next Sunday, with a new topic in English. And also a reminder, we will meet on Saturday about the same topic of next week in Arabic, inshallah. Until we meet again, Assalamu alaikum.
Multimedia Box TV رمضان كريم. هذا البرنامج برعاية إقبال حلال فودز 1499 Earn Mills, Mississauga, Ontario. Salt. خلي بيننا خبز وملح.
Water is the key to all life. However, across the globe, a staggering 785 million people go thirsty each and every day. Without safe and clean water to drink, they risk dehydration, disease, and at worst, death. Here at Islamic Relief, we're working worldwide in over 40 countries across the globe to ensure that not only do communities have safe and reliable source of water for today, but for life too. Help us save lives. Donate to Islamic Relief.
هل تفكر في شراء منزل أو بيع منزلك أو الاستثمار؟ الوكيل العقاري إياد عمر Goldwell Banker. الرسالة أكاديمي The Promising Future for Enlightened Generation. هنادي العقاد وكيل عقاري بيع شراء وإيجار لندن أونتاريو. نتمنى لكم صياما مقبولا. Multimedia Box TV رمضان كريم.